Welcome to Tea and Tarot with me, your host, Yashna. Each week I'll share what I've learned as I dive deeper into the world of tarot. I've got my cards in front of me, my cup of tea, and I can't wait to share this journey with you. This is Tea and Tarot.
Hello, welcome back to Tea and Tarot with me, Yashna. We're journeying through the major arcana and we must just continue on that journey wherever it takes us. And this week it has taken us to the Hanged Man, which, oh my gosh, is major arcana number 12. We are over halfway through with the major arcana and that's absolutely insane to me. And at the same time feels like I've been doing this forever. So I am so excited that we're making progress and we're getting through these cards. It's so exciting. So this week we're going to be talking about the Hanged Man or woman. So let's jump into it. One early interpretation of this card is that it depicts Muzio Antendolo Sforza, an Italian mercenary connected to the Visconti family. Sforza had killed tyrant Ottobono Turzo for Pope John, but then claimed the Pope didn't pay him for his services and defected to serve King Ladislao of Nepal, an opponent. All these names are a bit tricky for me, so again, apologies if I'm saying anything incorrectly, but I'm giving it my best effort. The Pope considered this an act of treason and commissioned a satirical allusion showing him as a traitorous hanged man, and this is what is depicted in that card. Another interpretation of the card is a nod to the Norse god Odin, who hung from the world ash tree, or the tree of, I'm really going to pronounce this wrong, Yggdrasil, for 9 days and nights. At the end, he was granted the gift of prophecy. So, kind of going into that mythology more, Odin sought wisdom and he wanted it from Yggdrasil, and the tree asks for a show of commitment before it grants any of those wishes. So Odin impaled himself to the tree with his spear Gungnir and hung from one of its branches. For those 9 days and nights, he ate and drank nothing, staring into the shadowy waters below him and calling out to the runes and knowledge of the world around him. After his commitment, he gained the knowledge of the world, the runes, and the favor of the Norns. Some thought that the depiction of the hanged man was actually a misprint and the man was supposed to be upright, but given the wider depiction of the hanged man upside down, this seems to be the correct interpretation of the hanged man. So let's look at the cards. I have the Rider-Waite deck card in front of me, and it very much shows a man upside down with a leg crossed on a T. The tree represents the world tree that the Norse god Odin hung from that we just talked about, and is a central motive of the Kabbalah. The tree is a Tau cross, which is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and alludes to the cross upon which Christ was crucified. The figure's right leg is bent, which mimics the shape of the Falfo cross, another Christian symbol. The halo around his head is a symbol of enlightenment and a spiritual signifier. As it's around the hanged man, it's also a symbol of protection. This card's a lot simpler than some of the other major arcana we looked at and isn't as packed with too much symbolism, but the man is simply dressed and does resemble the imagery of the Fool a lot, so just kind of shows that the Fool has continued this journey and has now reached this point of being the hanged man. In the Light Seers deck, the card shows a woman suspended with a ribbon that is often seen in aerial yoga. So to start this one off, I'm going to read the Hanged Man story from the Tarot for Light Seers guidebook. Strapping into an aerial yoga sling to prepare, the Hanged Man prepares herself for total surrender and for the pause she knows is required of her. The hanged man archetype is often attributed to the Norse god Odin, as he swings on the tree of Yggdrasil. In the Odin myth, he hung for 9 days and nights, surrendering to death in order to glean wisdom from the runes. By letting go and sacrificing himself for himself and his own wisdom, he was gifted access to the deep mysteries of life that were carved into the language and symbols of the rune. Our hanged man has come to a place in her journey where a similar surrender is necessary, and like Odin, she is intentional in her actions. She checks the straps and pushes beyond her current boundaries and releases it all. And from this flipped vantage point, she reaches toward the magic that awaits and toward her own runic insights. By fully surrendering and accepting what is, the epiphany of the present brings inner peace. In the card, she is on an aerial suspension, which is very symbolic of a time of surrender. Similar to the Rider-Waite deck, there's a bright halo around her head for spiritual awakening. There's a pause button in the top left corner, and that's a pause button in the cosmos. Hold. The angel numbers are for divine timing. And then there are a ton of different symbols below the woman in remembering the story from Odin that has now been mentioned so many times in this episode. I am so sorry. But in line with that, below her are a bunch of different runes that she is staring into to help her gain more knowledge of the world. So there is Thurisaz, which is for protection and defense. Perthro, which is luck, destiny, chance. Dagaz for breakthrough and a new day. Manaz, which is for mankind and shared experiences. Othala, which is for ancestors and wealth. Hagalas for change and surrender. Tiwaz for justice and power. Gibo for partnerships, a gift. And Rado, or Rido, for journeys and the present moment. So a lot of the major symbolism in this card comes from the runes that are depicted throughout the water, the area below her. Also, I forgot to mention this earlier, but I have a cup of rose tea today. A little different than my usual matcha, but I felt like something a little more floral while doing this. So that is what I'm sipping on. And yeah, let's talk about the meanings. So the general meaning from the Tarot for Light Seers guidebook is be fully surrendering and accepting what is. The epiphany of the present brings inner peace. The optimistic Light Seers meaning is I lean into my world of limitless miracles, surrendering to the divine will of the cosmos. The general meaning from the Light Seers deck is use your time wisely. The Light Seer meaning is surrendering to the will of the cosmos, an intentional pause, reflection, letting go, embracing the new, realigning with your heart and purpose, new wisdom found, spiritual teachings, sacrifice, enlightenment, and acceptance. In the Shadow Seer position, it represents stagnation, self-sabotage, holding on to something that isn't meant for you, stubbornness, and a tendency to be a martyr. When this card is pulled, the biggest message being sent your way is to let go. The card can mean being at a standstill, but it can also be about taking an intermission to get some introspection and take time to hit pause on everything going around you. When this card is pulled for love and relationship readings, it could indicate that you're unhappy with how your relationship is going in that moment and that you and your partner might need to take a step back. The Hanged Man tells you not to make a decision too fast and instead just take a step back and assess where you want this relationship to go. If you feel like you've been stuck and in suspension, you are the only one who can control your next steps. You are stuck in this stasis, but you can let go and move forward whenever you feel ready to let go. In the reverse, it can mean that you've been following the same negative patterns and need to figure out why it keeps happening so you can get out. Take time to evaluate the situation instead of acting on instinct. For money and career reading, you might feel uncertain about what next steps to take and where your career is going. While you're struggling, just take a breath. You don't need to make a decision right now. It's okay to just hang in there, hang out, and see how things play out for a bit before choosing your next step. In the reverse, it can mean you've been holding out for too long, and it's time to get out of this pause and start taking action again. Don't be a passenger in your life, or nothing will change. Similarly, for health readings, if you're struggling with something, don't reject your options or treatment plans. Take time to review your options and make sure you're giving yourself the time to pick properly. Healing takes time, so make sure you're taking the time you need to heal. Make sure you understand the different stressors and factors that might be impacting your health so you can actually address everything. And finally, for a spirituality reading, be mindful of how you view yourself and the negative thoughts you engage with internally. Don't let yourself get too bogged down and try to see how things around you connect into a more positive light. I'll end the content of this episode with a quick tidbit about aerial yoga. Given that the imagery in the Light Seers deck shows aerial suspension and an aerial strap, I thought it'd be fun to kind of look it up a little bit. And the thing that was the most surprising to me is that aerial yoga is a very new and recent thing, more recent than I thought. It likely existed in some form during early yoga practices, since yoga has existed, with people hanging from trees and using ropes to help deepen inverted positions. But it wasn't really introduced to Western culture until the 1990s. The structure that we know today around aerial yoga only began developing in the late 20th century and early into the 21st century. The inspiration for aerial yoga comes from a lot of different sources, including suspension for inversion therapy and deeper poses in yoga, but the rise of aerial dance and acrobatics really only developed in the early 2000s. Aerial yoga foundations started to begin to be established to help structure the practice and help it become a more widespread popular practice that we see today. It has grown exponentially in the last 20 years. So that's kind of all I have. I didn't dive into this topic too much more, but I did think it was really interesting that it's really only kind of come to be a bigger practice for dance and acrobatics and performance in the last 25 to 30 years, which is pretty cool. So that's all I have on the Hanged Man. Stay tuned because I am going to be doing a quick reading when I come back, and I'm going to be doing the Hanged Man reading from the Tarot for Light Seers book, the Flow and Go spread. So stay tuned and I'll be right back. Welcome back. We are doing the spread, the Hanged Man spread from the Tarot for Light Seers guidebook. This was what I was talking about with the Hanged Man earlier, and we are going to be jumping into this Flow and Go spread that is in the book. So for the spread, I will just be drawing 2 cards instead of 3 like I normally do. And this one is a spread for surrendering to the present moment. So I will be pulling 2 cards for Let It Go and Let It Flow. So let me shuffle the deck and try to kind of center myself a little bit for this reading. Okay, I have shuffled the deck and I am going to pick 2 cards. I am just going to split the deck once and then draw those cards. So this is my first half and this is the second half. So for my first card, Let It Go. Where would I benefit from letting go? Where am I over controlling or clinging too tightly? Oh my gosh, I should have read this prompt more. I don't know if I want to know this. Okay. This is the Five of Cups. Interesting. And then the Five of Cups is kind of about sorrow, and it's kind of about giving up hope on something because you've just had these expectations and they've been let down time after time. So you're kind of like draining away your last hopes, and fixating on this kind of sorrow in your life. So that's kind of a good let it go card. Better than something good. And then number 2, let it flow. This is, in what areas of my life should I welcome alternative viewpoints? This is the Emperor reversed, which is very interesting. I don't think I've really drawn the Emperor in a reading for myself ever. Yeah, let me refresh myself on the Five of Cups as well as the Emperor reversed. I know what the Emperor is in the typical forward position, but I'm kind of forgetting what it means in reverse. Yeah, so in Let It Go, Five of Cups, like I was saying, this card is kind of about abandonment. It's about being hurt or having someone break your heart in the past, but it's also a big card about moving on and accepting that and just trying to step forward, because for all of that heartache and for all the hurt that has been pushed your way by someone or something, there is hope, there's light, there is the next step, and it will get better. So it is a great like letting go thing in some of my own internal self-reflection of that second question of where am I over controlling or being a little clingy. I think this is something I was recently talking about with some friends where sometimes I think I struggle with trust and knowing that others truly have my back or will be there through thick and thin, because I've had so many instances of not that in the past, without getting into lots of details about my own history and all of my personal life. That's kind of the high viewpoint of it, where I do have trust issues from things in the past, and I think the Five of Cups is very representative of how you linger with those feelings and how you put these hopes in these cups and now they are draining away bit by bit, but it's something to let go of, because if I hold on to those feelings, I'll never be able to move on and let more people into my life. So that is an interesting one. That's a big one. And then for the Emperor in reverse, the Emperor is representative of leadership, representative of a good, strong, rational leader. And in reverse, it could mean maybe being too stubborn. It could mean that you might not be accounting for those in your life. So in the let it flow, where should I welcome alternative viewpoints? I think it kind of points to making sure that I'm listening to those around me. I'm taking in other viewpoints better. I'm not being too stubborn with my own beliefs and what I know and what I'm thinking. In the aspect of trying to be a good leader, it's like making sure you take in the viewpoints and you're taking in the opinions of those around you, so you aren't kind of narrow-minded to your own belief system. And so that way, you're not closing yourself off too soon, but then that way you grow as a person and you grow as a leader and you help those around you grow. So I don't know if that made any sense, but the way I'm reading it is I should make sure that I am listening to others around me more and really taking in their viewpoints instead of getting too stubborn with stuff. And there's definitely different aspects of my life that applies to, but right now I'm thinking about work as I'm trying to solve an issue, and I keep pulling myself up with my own thoughts versus all the opinions from everyone else and the classic too many cooks in the kitchen type stuff. But Yeah, I think it's a good reminder of that. So let it go. Let go of some of my past disappointments and then let it flow. Take in the perspective of others and work to be a better leader for myself and for those around me. Yeah. Well, that is the Hanged Man spread. Join me next week as we continue on the Major Arcana journey, and oh my, we are stepping to death and rebirth. So tune in next week to continue breaking down all these cards. See you then. Thank you for listening to Tea and Tarot with Yashna. This episode was produced, hosted, and edited by me, Yashna Bensel, and brought to you by Tea Time Podcasts. The tarot reading was done using the Light Seers deck by Chris Ann, and all card visuals were from the Light Seers deck and the Rider Waite Smith Tarot deck. Research was done using Wikipedia, The Ultimate Guide to Tarot by Liz Dean, Tarot for Light Seers by Chris Ann, and many, many Google searches. Music was made using SoundRaw. Join me next week for another episode of Tea and Tarot.